this guy has been an icon for the game of cricket. Brilliantly done.
I said to her, it must hurt her that she still hasn't got an ICC trophy. And it does. She said that's the one thing that is certainly driving her.
I like straight lines. It's one of the reasons Sachin Tendulkar, for example, was one of the players, along with the late Martin Crowe, that I liked watching.
Welcome to this week's Cricket Inside Out. We've got a packed show coming your way. We are debating whether more bowlers should be made captains. We've got plenty of phenomenal fan questions from you. Thank you very much. We are also asking our guests about their favorite moment. As commentators, we are looking under the hood, taking a closer squiz at the stats on one of the legends of the women's game from India. And of course, we usually start the show with a great moment from a Hall of Famer. This week is another special one. Joining us on the show, much loved commentators, Ian Bishop, the humble giant of the commentary room, and former Australia captain Lisa Sthalekar. Lisa, you were out and about, busy this week. Tell me about how things are down under.
Yeah, well, there's a few more restrictions being released as my cat just jumps across me, so I apologise right now. I was able to head down to Barrel, where the Bradman Museum is, or the Cricket Hall of Fame, and doing a few little different projects there about the history of women's cricket, so watch out for that.
Oh, good stuff. Ian Bishop, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're going to be talking bowlers. You've been busy. You spoke to Jasprit Bumrah just the other day on interviews Inside Out. You and Polly, you guys just starting your own little group there, hey?
Well, the fast bowlers have to stick together. You know, we're the real brains behind the game of cricket. So it was enjoyable for us grouping together again. Sorry about that, Lisa. No, but Jasprit was a treat to speak to, as is the case with Sean. They're very humble gentlemen, but they're able to analyze and to break down the game of cricket, which helps the young viewer, a young aspiring viewer and cricketer. So it was a real treasure.
Speaking of breaking down the game and inspiring the next generation, this Hall of Famer is certainly someone who captivated the imagination of cricketing fans around the world and probably attracted a few more to the sport. The ball of the century belonged to him, and this week marks 27 years since that ball of the century, bowled, of course, by our Hall of Famer of this week, Shane Warne. Now, Mr. Bishop, and I know you don't like it when I call you Mr. Bishop, but I need to get your insight on this ball of the century. Just how did he do it? His first ball in his first Ashes test, that is a phenomenal way of announcing yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the drama of all that you've said, being his first Ashes test, being the first ball for him of the test match after I think England had gotten off to quite a decent start in their response. So all of that sort of built around it. We'll come to the next question as to whether it was the beginning for him, because it was only the beginning for him in Ashes cricket, not international cricket, of course. The thing that was special about that delivery is not only the amount of response he got out of the surface, but if you get a chance, and we'll see it time and time and time again, the little drift just before it touched down onto the surface, and then the spin from outside leg to off. But that drift for me really sealed it as a package, which was followed up by the spin.
Shane Keith Warne became the 71st inductee in the Hall of Fame in 2013. Lisa, that moment is just one that cricketers love, or cricket fans love watching back. Can you remember where you were? Did you watch it live? What was that impact on the cricketing world, and particularly probably Australian cricket?
Yeah, it was a big moment in Australian cricket. I was only 13 years of age, so I think I was tucked up in bed. Ashes cricket meant late nights, and I think I would have been in year 7. So, yeah, I was definitely in bed, but no doubt it would have been played the first thing, from a newsreel when we woke up. And really, from our point of view here in Australia, probably till 2005, that ball was kind of, it signified the Ashes campaign. Whenever an Ashes test series was coming up, that ball, that image was played and played again. So it is synonymous with Australian test cricket, with spinners that wear the baggy green, and it certainly inspired a whole new generation of becoming leg spinners and getting the peroxide blonde hair as well.
Yeah, we talk about spinners now as a necessary and an important part of the game. But from what I can gather, Bish, that wasn't necessarily the widely held belief. And no small measure contributed to this. You guys there from the West Indies with your phenomenal pace bowling. Did he really revolutionise the game that much?
I think it's the entire package that comes with Shane. He's an excellent bowler, 708 test match wickets. So when you look at the test match leading wicket takers, you see Murali up there, Shane, Anil Kumble. So it's a testament to his stamina in terms of durability to go for as long as he did. But the way that he spun the ball, his confidence, the drama around it, the little banter that he had on the cricket field, the confidence, and as Lisa said, the blonde hair. But we saw him, Elma, we actually saw him, he played against us, and the real start to his international career in terms of impact was a 7-wicket haul that he got against the West Indies the previous year in Melbourne. And that is what I think sent a message through the cricketing world, having played against Sri Lanka and India before without much success, that Shane Warne had arrived. And of course, he went to follow that on with performances against New Zealand and then, of course, the Ashes. So we accept that, hey, this guy has been an icon for the game of Test match cricket. Brilliantly done.
Also, what made him really special was the tactical side of things. He really outsmarted a lot of batters, and the best batters in the world over a number of different generations. So we only probably, as the public, got a snippet of it when we started to mic up players on the field through the T20 franchise. I believe maybe his first time that he was mic'd up was the Big Bash, Melbourne Stars, who was playing against Brendan McCullum. And he told the commentator, I'm just going to slide this one through. I'm looking for a bowled or an LB. He bowled him around the legs, and that kind of went viral. And everyone understood. We always knew that he was tactically smart, but to hear a bowler kind of go through how they're going to set up a player and how they're going to get them out, and then to be able to execute on the world stage, he was able to do that time and time again, hence why his numbers and his stats and those numbers will stand the test of time.
The other thing to add to everything that we've said is the control that he was able to exhibit. Remember, he played multiple formats with great success. For a leg spinner, a wrist spinner, that isn't always the easiest thing. And he did much of that work with what I would call an outstanding googly. It was a weak spinning googly at times. He had his shoulder problems and so forth. So the leg break did, and slider, top spinner did a lot of his work. So I think it speaks a testament to that tactical knowledge, but that understanding of the game and bowling in particular, Lisa talked about.
World Cup triumphs, Ashes victories, voted as one of the 5 cricketers of the century and widely regarded as the best leg spin bowler in history. That's Shane Warne on our Hall of Fame feature. Next up, we're talking about another phenomenal cricketer. This time we turn our attention to India's captain, Mithali Raj. Lisa, talk us through Mithali Raj.
Well, she's been playing the game for an awfully long time, 2 decades. She's already racked up, and I don't know if we'll see that again from this current generation, simply because they play a lot more. The game is a little bit more taxing than probably it was at the start of her career. But she has been a player who has, you talk about a player who carries the weight of the nation. She did for such a long period of time. The Indian side was pretty much made up of Mithali Raj and Julian Goswami, who was the fast bowler. So between the two of them, their success was really important for India to do well, whether it be in World Cups or bilateral series. She's a stylish batter, has a beautiful cover drive, has a really heavy bat. I've picked up her bat and I'm thinking, I don't know how she picks it up, but she just times it to perfection. And she certainly is stylish. And she she is really good with her innings in the sense that she times it to perfection. There's been probably criticism in the past of her not going fast enough at the start of her innings, but she's again a real thinker of the game, and hence why she's also been captain of the Indian side for a long period of time.
Yeah, for so long. She's on 6,888 ODI runs. That's more than 2,000 ahead of Stephanie Taylor and Susie Bates from New Zealand. That is an immense number. Now, she's still an active player at 37 in ODIs at least. She made her debut at 16. And she's probably going to still be building on this lead for a bit more. She says she wants to go for the 2021 World Cup. Bish, what should she be aiming for then if she's already so far ahead of the pack? A lot of cricketers in this time are talking about this lockdown giving them an opportunity to refocus and set goals. How much bigger could this total still get?
Well, I wouldn't pretend to know her as well, of course, as Lisa is a contemporary of hers. But just the numbers, over 200 one-day internationals, and the lead she has in the runs, I don't know how much focus she should really put on that. Stephanie Taylor and Susie Bates. Susie Bates is in her 30s. Stephanie Taylor seems to be having some problems with durability. So that is a fair lead. If we from the outside are looking at maintaining that lead, with Mithali now at 37, as you said, I don't know how much longer she has to go, but if she does aim for that World Cup, I think the primary objective for Mithali right now, and this is me speaking, is for her to try to help India as much as possible if she's at that World Cup, if they can go on to win it. I don't know that her focus should be so much on individual runs. India is a superpower in waiting in the women's game. Australia and Lisa, I'm not just saying this just because you're here, but the numbers show how dominant that they have been. So it would be incumbent on India with the volume that they have to be able to up that gap. And if Mithali is still available, if she's selected, she's still around. To me, that is the number one objective for her.
I actually caught up with Mithali Raj on an Instagram live that I did, and I said to her, it must hurt her that she still hasn't got an ICC trophy. And it does. She said that's the one thing that is certainly driving her. And she's using this time, like you said, Elma, a lot of players just to focus on a physical point of view and fitness. And she still has a very strict routine where she's hitting balls down in the garage and still making sure that she's upskilling so that she is ready to lead India, hopefully to World Cup success in 21.
Who are some of the young players who perhaps are not yet on that list? We've mentioned Taylor and Bates. Next up is Amy Satterthwaite and Meg Lanning. Meg actually has scored more centuries than Mithali Raj already. Is she probably the one that we expect to perhaps improve on a few more of these records?
Well, Meg Lanning is leading the way with ODIs, 13. The next best is Susie Bates with 10. But Meg Lanning's conversion rate is really impressive. Was it 1300s, only 1450s. So when she gets to the 50 mark, she goes on and makes it a really big one. Averages over 50. She's only 29. So the fact that she has an ability to still play for a long period of time will allow her to potentially be the greatest ever women's ODI player. I've said that from the start when I first saw her come onto the scene with the Australian team. She's such a stylish player. She has had a few issues with her back. That has unfortunately missed some games and also shoulder surgery as well. So with all the current players now, it's about can they physically stay on the park. Another one that Ian Bishop would have seen during the T20 World Cup is actually Laura Woolvardt from South Africa. Now, she's only turned 21 years of age, and she's averaging in the 40s. Now, she's still got an ability to potentially play a lot more cricket. But Ian, we saw her in the T20 World Cup and she almost flicked another switch, didn't she?
Yeah, that cover drive, those inside out shots for Laura would be something that would be a treat to the world for however long she can carry on. It would certainly be wonderful to see her play for another 10, 12, 15 years.
Yeah, well, certainly one more player that I'll kind of throw her name into the hat is Smriti Mandhana. So she's 23. She's a stylish left-handed batter. She scored already 2,399 runs. Obviously opens the batting, so she gets the most opportunity to be out there. Her strike rate is really impressive. Averages over 40. Has only played 51 ODIs, so a little bit like what Ian Bishop said, how much will the women's game one-day format be played as the future goes on? Will we see more teams come into the one-day, the ITC Women's Championship? At the moment, there's 8, so there's thoughts and movement to 10 teams, and will that expand as the women's game really does go global? If that is the case, then certainly some of these younger players will start to play a lot more cricket. And the calendar will be full. So we may see Mithali Raj's record being broken.
We are just introducing an interesting new spin on things this week on the show. If you've watched all of our other episodes, you'll recognize that we're taking a moment here to take a slight detour. Since we have such phenomenal storytellers on the show this week, we figured we'd ask them to take us inside the commentary room with them to showcase their favorite moment on the mic. Now, I'm sure you've got some guesses, particularly when it comes to Ian Bishop, on what this might be, but I have a feeling he might surprise us. Oh, Bish, tell us about your favorite moment on the mic.
I don't know if I had one favorite moment. No.
Come
I'm
on!
not doing that. I think it was just the year 2016, really, rather than for me a moment on the mic. Just being able to watch the West Indies team, obviously emotionally close to my heart, being a former player and West Indian, obviously, to watch the under-19s win their first World Cup in Bangladesh in that year, early that year, and then to watch the women do what they did with great success to win the T20 World Cup a few months later, and then to follow that up almost immediately with the men winning. That was a memorable year. It was a memorable day at Eden Gardens for I would think, almost every West Indian. And it's something that I don't think I'd ever be able to forget, the sense of celebration and the sense of pride that those 3 occasions brought to West Indies cricket.
The real significance of it, and I guess being from there, it does make it different to commentate on something like that, because it's so incredibly personal. You've played for your country, the pride runs deep. We all know that about you.
Well, I think it's the same for most cricketers. For Lisa, having been a player and former captain of Australia, you want to have that sense of identity. You see, West Indian cricket, it consists of a number of disparate nations, and the only thing that really unifies us to a large extent has been cricket and the history. So, in a sense, our identity is tied to cricket, not only for us as former players, but for the people of those individual nations. And that is a huge responsibility. So just from a broadcasting perspective as well, Lisa and Elma, you want to be able to do an excellent job, because those moments, as we were told and taught by a great friend of ours, live on forever. So you want to be able to do justice, whether it's the under-19 win, whether it's the women winning for the first time or the men winning for the second time, to be able to call those moments. I don't know that I'd say you want it, but certainly the pressure is on to be able to do justice to it, because it will be played like the Shane Warne delivery for decades to come.
Lisa, tell us about your favorite moment on the mic. Was it earlier this year, perhaps?
Well, I wasn't actually on the mic for the winning moment of the T20 World Cup final. I was on the ground, and then they did shove a camera in my face, so I did burst into tears when that happened. I was an emotional wreck that whole game, because it was so emotional as a former player to see the fact that 86,000 plus had come in to watch a women's game. But for me, probably the most memorable moment behind the mic was actually the first ever day-night pink ball test match. So obviously Australia versus England. It was 2017 at North Sydney Oval. Cricket Australia brought in to live stream it, but in the end they decided to get a few more cameras, and it actually went out to Sky. There was just 4 commentators. So it was Mel Jones, Isha Gua, Charlotte Edwards and myself. No producer, no stats guy there. It was Elise Perry. She had never scored 100 for her country. She managed to score a test 100, but it was actually the double 100 which was the most entertaining. So I was calling it. She needed a 6 to potentially get the double 100. There was 1 wicket left as well. Megan Shute was out there, and she hit the ball, and the crowd just went up, and everyone behind signaled 6. So she celebrated in style. She took the helmet off. She kissed the badge. She carried on. And then Sarah Taylor, the English wicketkeeper, kind of said, "Mate, I think it's a 4." So you hear me on the mic. I kind of rise with everyone and we celebrate. And then I'm like, Elise Perry, put your helmet back on. That's only 4. So then finally, thankfully, she was able to score her double 100, I think, in the next over. But it was a tense moment. Everyone was clapping all the dots for Megan Shute. For the women's game, we don't play that much Test cricket, so to kind of witness that was pretty special.
Oh, that's special. That's such a brilliant story. Thank you for sharing that. It's great to get a bit of an insight into these moments behind the mic. From the Fans gives you the stage. We're opening up the floor and letting you join the party. Sending in your questions every week has been something you have clearly been taking very seriously. Thank you so much to everyone who joins the ranks of the presenters on the show every week. Bish, we have a question here. In West Indian wickets, why are the spinners not that effective as compared to the rampant fast bowlers?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. If I understand it correctly, I do think that there has been a period, or there was a period up until maybe about 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, where spinners were doing the bulk of the work in the Caribbean. Certainly domestically, the spinners, partly because of the ability or lack thereof of batsmen, have been holding sway in the Caribbean, but there has been a serious attempt in the last 2.5-3 seasons to leave more grass on the pitches for international cricket test matches in the Caribbean, certainly, and also a change to the Duke Bowl, which has a more proud seam, which the fast bowlers are loving, and that has brought fast bowling back to the fore in the Caribbean because there was a little bit of a layoff, I would say, from around the late 90s to maybe 2015, where fast bowling was a little more challenging in the Caribbean and spinners were holding sway.
Next up, we have another question here for you, Lisa. How much do you think has the Women's Big Bash League helped the Australian side to be a powerhouse in white ball cricket? It must have made a massive contribution.
Yeah, huge contribution, especially when you think about some of the younger players that were exposed at that competition and that have come through to the Australian team and performed well. Ash Gardner is certainly one, performed well for the Sydney Sixers the first couple of years, got an opportunity, was player of the final in the 2018 T20 World Cup. We also saw during that T20 World Cup, Georgia Wareham, we've seen Sophie Molyneux, Taylor Valamick. These girls have all come through the WBBL where they're playing with and against the best players in the world, and then in front of a crowd, an atmosphere, TVs, interviews, everything that goes with international cricket. And you have that in a domestic competition. has allowed them to come in and have a huge impact straight away with the Australian team and on the international stage. So no longer are you seeing young players coming in and batting down the order or bowling second, third change and finding their feet on international cricket. They're taking the key spots and they're performing straight away.
Next up, we have a question for you, Bish, about the Windies. Unlike other Windies batsmen who prefer the attacking approach, what makes Shai Hope different from all these batsmen, provided his much more conservative approach, which still makes him successful in white ball cricket?
Well, I like to watch batsmen who play like Shai Hope. It is my particular fetish in that I like straight lines. It's one of the reasons Sachin Tendulkar, for example, was one of the players, along with the late Martin Crowe, that I liked watching because of the straight lines, the down swing of the bat. And Shai Hope comes from that classical mold as well. He's not what you'd call a power player, but he's able to find gaps. You look at someone like a Virat Kohli maybe, who, though more risky, also has a sense of that classical streak about him. Only a sense, because I know people will say, well, there are certain things that he does that are different and they're all marvelous. So Shai has found the ability to pierce gaps, to lob the ball over the field. He can hit the odd six when he chooses to do that. And of course, the volume of his scoring in 50-over cricket adds to that attraction and allure. I know, though, that Shai wants to score more test match runs, and he is on the prowl, on the search. Lisa, I don't know if you have any tips as a former Australian captain to pass on to him. He wants to follow up those twin hundreds at Headingley a couple of years ago and really dominate red ball cricket. So he's happy with white ball. We are happy for him, but we also, like him, want to see him score more in red ball cricket.
Which of these bowling records, next question, is most likely to be unbreakable? Now, there are some interesting ones in here. Irfan Pathan's first over hat-trick, Jim Laker's 19-wicket haul in a single test, Sunil Narayan's T20 maiden super over, Phil Simmons' lowest runs conceded in a single match, 3, and Murali's 800 test wickets. Bish.
Whew. Can I say all of them? There are a couple there. I remember Phil Simmons. I was there the night of the Sydney Cricket Ground when he achieved that record. I remember he called for a drink, and I had this huge tray, a silver tray, and I took out a drink for him, and I almost knelt at his feet because of the magnitude of what he just achieved. So I think that'll be a difficult one for anyone to get past, as well as a super over that is a maiden. I mean, come on, Sunil Narayan to Nicholas Puran of all people. I would pick those two as unlikely for us to see, particularly that maiden super over.
And then a final one. I have a question for Ian Bishop. How can I be more rhythmic in my bowling action?
Ooh.
It's all the dancing, isn't it, Bish, that you do?
Hey, West Indians have a natural inbuilt mechanism for rhythm. Look, I think on a serious note, that takes work. It's hard to give a precise recommendation of ingredients and criteria without having seen someone. But I take someone like a Shannon Gabriel, the current West Indies fast bowler, a big, burly, strong man. And when he started out as a bowler, guys would say he had no rhythm. His mechanics weren't of a fast bowler at all, and they struggled to see how he would make it. But just through routine, just through a good trainer telling him and showing him what the mechanics need to be, and him grooving that time and time again, he became much better, much more rhythmical as a bowler, much more streamlined, and his alignment was better. So that's what I would say. Get someone to have a look at you, get someone knowledgeable to tell you what the right mechanics are, and then put in the work of repetition. And that, I think, goes a long way. That hard work, you can't go wrong.
On this week's show, we seem to be talking about bowlers all the time, but we are not going to apologize for that just yet in our debate. As I promised you a little earlier, we're asking, should more bowlers be made test captains? Of the 57 men to have captained more than 25 tests, 46 have been chiefly batsmen. Don Bradman himself said that bowlers should never be captains because they underbowl or overbowl themselves all the time. In the one corner, we have Lisa Sthalekar, and in the other, Ian Bishop. Lisa, take us through your thoughts on the topic. Which side are you?
Well, firstly, I don't want to fight Ian Bishop in a physical fight. I think we know who's going to win. Everyone's seen photos of us standing next to each other, unless I take him out from his ankles. But what I will say is, do you ever go against what Sir Donald Bradman says to start with? Probably not. So there's shut case for me. But I'll go a little bit further in the sense that you've got to go back to who is captaining your under 10 side. Now, your fast bowlers, God bless their cotton socks, are so important to the game of cricket. But they're normally the person who you just tell, look, here's the ball, bowl as fast as you can, I'll set the field, away you go. So they're the ones that aren't necessarily being ingrained from a young age on the tactics. It tends to be the batter, because they're the ones that are sitting there thinking about the game. They're thinking about how they're scoring runs against a bowler. So they're already starting to think tactically about the game. Then you've got to fast forward as you're getting older. You hit your teenage years, late teenage years. Fast bowlers, unfortunately, go through this growth spurt where, unfortunately, they get injured, which means they miss games. Now, a captain, you want to stay in your side, leading the group for the season, for a tournament, for a series. You can't keep chopping and changing. You need that consistency, that one voice who is leading the group to whatever the common goal is. So the two factors for me are, firstly, fast bowlers aren't really being taught the tactical side of the game from a young age. Now, can that change? I'm sure it can. But the real issue for me is that they break down, unfortunately. And whilst the sports science within the game of cricket is trying to change, and they limit the amount of balls being bowled by younger fast bowlers at training and in games, they're trying to see if they can get rid of those stress fractures, which sees players being ruled out for a long period of time. You just need someone consistent. And the truth of the matter is, batters don't break down as much.
Bish, a lot of people would say that Imran Khan was an outlier and that the rule applies universally. Bowlers can't be test captains. What do you say?
For the first time since I have worked with Lisa, I have not nodded in agreement at all if we rewind this video, because I would have expected Lisa to have more empathy and sympathy, having been an outstanding player, captain successfully as an off-spinner all-rounder. Right. Sir Donald Bradman.
Oh, I want to come back to you on that one.
Bless you. Yes, God bless you. I have to sort of disagree in this sense. I think that fast bowlers have a real understanding of, one, technique of batsmen, weaknesses of batsmen, because that is their day job, to analyze these things, to look deeply at the game. They have a great sense of what other bowlers are going through, because they can empathize with the stresses, strains, see when someone is in good rhythm, see when someone is not in good rhythm. Is the wind possibly affecting them, or is it a rhythm thing today? When they can come back, because they've walked and run in those shoes. And I think, yes, there is a disadvantage to Lisa's point in that traditionally batsmen have been thought of as the ones who look at all the tactical things from a young age. But I've seen Imran Khan, I've seen Courtney Walsh learn through just the practical aspects of the game and their involvement. I've been a captain at domestic level and captain West Indies for 2 overs myself, just 2 overs.
2 overs.
So you look at the commentary box. You look at the commentary box and see how many former fast bowlers are in there calling the game and calling the game accurately with insight and foresight. And you tell me if there hasn't been a bias against bowlers leading teams in the past. The one downside is that sometimes fast bowling can be a little bit emotional. And as a leader of the pack, if you get emotional during an over, you tend to lose focus, whereas the batsman is standing there at slip or mid-on or wherever he is inactive. So I think there are 1 or 2 downsides. I would say Sir Donald Bradman, the bowler is in a better position to know when to end a spell or when to lengthen a spell because he knows himself.
Ian Bishop always makes some really good points. But the matter of the fact is he hasn't addressed the injury concern and the fact that a fast bowler breaks down.
It is an issue. I would be lying if I said that fast bowlers are not more prone to injury than batsmen are. But again, I think it shouldn't be a general rule. Courtney Walsh has gone on to play over 100 test matches for the West Indies. For a fast bowler, Glenn McGrath, look at how many test matches. I'm not saying he was a captain. I'm just saying look at his durability. Jimmy Anderson, look at his durability. Imran Khan was a fast bowler who had his injury problems. So to Lisa's point, it is a factor, but his batting kept him in the game for a long time when he wasn't bowling at his fastest or best. So I think the injury could be a factor, but I think it should be on a case-by-case basis because Pat Cummins, your beloved Pat Cummins, the wonderful fast bowler in the modern game, is being touted as having, 1, the intellectual acumen, given his history problems, Elma, in your part of the world when he started his career, he's now touted as having the durability. So I am going to stand, Lisa, tall and proud of the fast bowling cartel and say we should be given more chances and not have these biases held against us. If the off-spinning all-rounder can do it, so can the fast bowler.
I feel like if Bish goes into politics, I'm voting for him. But let us know who you are siding with on this topic. Make sure that you tweet us, you Facebook us, you drop your comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. As usual, thank you so much to everyone who contributed to this week's show. And a particular word of thanks to Lisa Sthalekar cat. What is your cat's name?
Jamie, yeah, he featured heavily.
Jamie, thank you so much for popping up at just the best moments of the show. Just popping ahead in there. If you didn't spot Jamie because you were paying so much attention, just rewind and go watch it. Speaking of rewind, we have a back catalogue of 6 other episodes of these shows. We've had some great times along the way, so make sure you go watch those and catch that special Interviews Inside Out conversation that Jasprit Bumrah, Sean Pollock and our own Ian Bishop had recently. Thank you so much, Bish and Lisa.